Craig Melvin has broken his silence after an unauthorized individual entered a restricted area near NBC's Today Show studio and approached him at Rockefeller Center. Melvin's message was direct. He said he was doing fine and expected to return to the program the following morning. But while his statement reassured viewers about his condition, a more serious legal update followed shortly afterward. The man identified by authorities was charged with multiple offenses designated as hate crimes. What Melvin confirmed is clear. What happened inside the restricted area is still being separated between NBC's official account, police allegations, and early reports. For verified entertainment updates without the rumors, subscribe to Startline Entertainment. The incident occurred on Thursday, July 16, 2026, at 30 Rockefeller Center in New York City. NBC said an individual entered an unauthorized vestibule near Studio 1A and approached Melvin, who alerted security. The network said the individual was detained and taken into law enforcement custody without further incident. NBC also stressed 2 points that should remain central to every account of the story. There was no physical altercation, and no injuries were reported. Later that afternoon, Melvin addressed the messages he had been receiving from concerned viewers. Writing on his verified Instagram account, he said, "I'm doing just fine." Thanked those who had contacted him and said he was looking forward to appearing on Today the next morning. It was a brief response, but it established the most important personal fact directly from Melvin himself. He was unharmed and was not announcing an immediate withdrawal from the program. That distinction matters because Melvin already had time away from Today scheduled to begin on Monday, July 20th. The absence had been announced on the broadcast one day before the security incident. Melvin had explained that he would be off throughout the following week and part of the week after that, with Taylor Twellman expected to fill in. Any absence beginning Monday should therefore not be presented as evidence that the incident forced Melvin off the air. The chronology of the breaking news also requires a correction. When People first published Melvin's response at 5:29 p.m. Eastern Time, the article said the individual had not yet been charged. A newer People report published at 6:35 p.m. said the NYPD had charged 41-year-old Andrew Truelove with burglary as a hate crime, menacing as a hate crime, criminal trespass as a hate crime, and harassment. People reported that he had not yet been arraigned. In other words, the original break silence story was overtaken by a significant legal development within a little more than an hour. Those charges did not mean the allegations have been proven. Truelove is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, and the case had not yet reached an arraignment in the latest available update. The charging decision does, however, show that authorities were treating the alleged conduct as more than a routine trespassing incident. The next court proceeding should clarify the formal accusations, whether prosecutors retain every police-listed count, and what release or detention conditions are requested. According to the NYPD's statement reported by People, an officer assigned to 30 Rockefeller Center was alerted to a disorderly individual inside the building at approximately 8:57 a.m. The responding officer entered the building and placed the individual into custody without incident. Other published accounts have given a time closer to 9:19 a.m., meaning there is a minor discrepancy in the publicly reported police timeline. The safest description is that the security incident unfolded at approximately 9 o'clock Thursday morning. The location also needs careful wording. Some headlines have described the individual as breaking onto the Today set. NBC's more precise account says he entered an unauthorized vestibule near Studio 1A. That confirms a breach of a controlled area, but does not necessarily establish that he walked onto the active on-camera set. Unless court documents or surveillance evidence provide more detail, restricted area near Studio 1A is the most accurate confirmed description. Early reporting attributed to law enforcement or production sources said the individual initially asked for Al Roker, then allegedly confronted Melvin, directed racial language toward him, and lunged in his direction. NBC did not confirm those detailed movements or repeat the alleged words in its statement. The network said only that the person approached Melvin, that Melvin alerted security, and that no altercation occurred. Those versions may eventually prove compatible because an alleged threatening movement can happen without physical contact, but the public evidence is not yet detailed enough to state every reported action as an established fact. Authorities' decision to include hate crime designations indicates that police believe the alleged conduct involved bias motivation. Reports say racial slurs were allegedly directed at Melvin, while a source told people that Truelove had asked for Roker before approaching Melvin. Both Melvin and Roker are black. Still, the existence of hate crime charges does not itself prove motive. Prosecutors would have to support that element with admissible evidence during the legal process. The incident did not produce a visible disruption for much of the viewing audience. Melvin and Roker were reported to have returned to the broadcast shortly after the individual was removed, and neither discussed the situation on the air at that time. That quiet continuation helps explain why the story initially developed through statements and outside reporting rather than through an immediate on-camera explanation from the Today team. Melvin's Instagram statement later changed that. Instead of detailing what he saw or repeating the alleged language, he focused on his condition and his plan to work the following morning. That restraint is notable because it kept his message within what he could personally confirm without complicating the active investigation. He did not describe the encounter as a physical attack, did not offer a theory about the individual's motive, and did not comment publicly on the later charges in the statement covered by People. NBC's response also moved beyond the arrest itself. The network said Today was cooperating with law enforcement and reviewing both the incident and its security protocols. Studio 1A presents an unusual security environment because the program maintains a highly visible street-level presence at Rockefeller Plaza, while employees, hosts, and guests also move through controlled production spaces. NBC has not publicly explained exactly how the individual allegedly passed the first security barrier or which procedures may change. That unanswered access question is now one of the largest parts of the story. Melvin's personal update has reduced uncertainty about whether he was injured, but NBC must still determine how an unauthorized person reached a space close enough to approach one of the network's highest-profile anchors. A review could involve entrances, credential checks, staffing, communication between building and studio security, or other measures, but NBC has not announced specific changes. Any claim about the cause of the breach would therefore be speculation at this point. The public also should not interpret Melvin's calm response as proof that the incident was insignificant. A person can confirm that no physical injury occurred while the employer and police still regard the circumstances as serious. NBC's security review and the listed charges demonstrate that the institutional response extends beyond Melvin's reassuring message. His statement answers how he is doing. It does not resolve how the breach happened or what evidence supports the alleged hate crime conduct. Here is the start line takeaway. The biggest change since the original report is that the story now has two parallel updates. Craig Melvin has personally confirmed that he is fine and plans to return to Today before his previously arranged vacation. At the same time, Andrew Truelove has been charged with burglary, menacing, and criminal trespass under hate crime designations, along with harassment, although he had not yet been arraigned. Viewers should not confuse Melvin's brief statement with a full factual account of the encounter, and they should not confuse charges with a conviction. What remains unclear is the exact path the individual allegedly took, what surveillance footage may show, how close he came to Melvin, whether prosecutors will present the same list of counts in court, and what specific changes NBC's security review will produce. Al Roker had not issued a comparable public statement in the coverage reviewed, despite reports that the individual initially asked for him. Those are the next developments worth watching, not unsupported theories about intent or exaggerated descriptions of physical contact. The verified summary is straightforward. An unauthorized individual entered a restricted area near Today's Studio 1A on July 16th and approached Craig Melvin. Melvin alerted security, the individual was taken into custody, and no injury or physical altercation was reported by NBC. Melvin later said he was doing fine. Authorities subsequently charged Andrew Truelove with 3 offenses carrying hate crime designations and 1 harassment count, while NBC began reviewing how the security breach occurred. Melvin's message closed one question quickly. He is safe. But the larger story remains open. The next court record may clarify the evidence behind the charges, and NBC's review may reveal whether the incident leads to visible changes around one of America's most public television studios. The timing of the revelation is another reason the story is receiving attention. The couple is approaching 8 years of marriage in December 2026, and the podcast gave them an opportunity to compare the careful opening messages with the life they have built since then. Nick marked their 7th anniversary in December 2025 by publicly referring to Priyanka as his dream girl. Here is the start line takeaway. What changed is not the established timeline of Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas' relationship, but the level of detail available about its earliest stage. The public already knew that Nick initiated contact and that they communicated privately before dating. The new element is that Nick apparently wanted visual confirmation before trusting that the private number belonged to Priyanka. What viewers should not assume is that the request proves jealousy, distrust, or a hidden relationship problem. Based on their own account, it was an identity check that quickly became an inside joke. The clearest verified summary is this. Nick became interested after Kevin mentioned Quantico, and Nick noticed Priyanka on a Sunset Boulevard billboard. He contacted her through Twitter. They moved the exchange to text messages, and he requested a real-time time-stamped photograph to make sure it was actually her. They continued communicating for roughly a year and a half before officially dating, became engaged within a few months, and married in India in December 2018. What began as a request for proof has now become one more detail in a relationship the couple has documented across nearly a decade. The unanswered question is no longer whether Priyanka was really the person behind the number. It is how one cautious message, sent after a chance look at a billboard, managed to stay alive long enough for the timing between them finally to work.